Hello, and welcome back to the Ambassadors of Gaming. I'm one in your collection of hosts, Ambassador Michael. And today, I want to discuss the recent remake of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. The original version of the game came out on Game Boy Advance, and then on the DS, there was an upgraded version. There was a red version and a blue version. I forget the exact names of them. Red Team and Blue Team, I think, was the original names, but they have since combined those games, brought them over to the Nintendo Switch, and we want to discuss them today because I feel like the originals were really underrated. Some games that aren't really talked about. Not all the Pokemon spin-off games are good, but these ones I think are pretty exceptional in terms of their gameplay. The story is actually really well crafted, and they're a lot of fun. I think the core loop here is really good. So, gonna go back over some of what I think. I can't recall if all of what I'm going to talk about here is new, so I'm having a bit of trouble discerning what's new and what's different. So we're just going to talk about what's in the game itself and kind of feelings about that and everything. So the core loop of exploring the dungeons and finding items and turn-based combat is still incredibly fun. The dungeons are RNG, I believe, and so every time you go in, they're a little bit different. The items you get may be a little bit different, and the way the Pokemon are laid out is different. They also continually spawn, so even if you beat all the Pokemon on the floor, more will spawn. So that is something that's a bit tedious if you're a completionist, but the map marks where the items are. So if you're really just looking for items, you can quickly get to the items and objectives and then move on to the next floor without having to explore the whole floor and continuing your adventure. So all the dungeons, I think, are well put together. From the 3 that I've played so far, I've played the first 3 dungeons and the first boss fight. I really like when you group up on your missions. The missions are sometimes spread across multiple dungeons or multiple levels of a dungeon, so you could hypothetically go and complete one job in a dungeon and leave. But every time you do that, it spends a day. I can't recall, based on the time that I've spent with it, if the days actually matter. I don't think there's any systems in place that really determine or make a difference in the days and why it would matter. So you can go home earlier than completing all quests that you have in a certain area if you don't feel like continuing on, or you're worried about not having the right items. And there's a movement-based system. They call it's like a hunger-based system in this game. After a certain amount of time, you become hungry and you can't move. Thankfully, based on my experiences with the game so far, that applies to each Pokemon. So instead of, if you have a party of 3, for example, you can swap between all 3. And if Pokemon 1 runs out, you can move to Pokemon 2. And before that runs out, you can run to Pokemon 3. And then the other 2's hunger will not continue to deplete while you're using the others. So I think that's really interesting. I don't really like time-based mechanics in dungeon exploring, but I kind of get it at the same point. It's to maintain some balance in the game. So one of the things that's unique about this game versus other Pokemon games is they call it linking. So what you do is you link moves together, and this allows you to kind of combo and allow create tactics that allow you to defeat bosses and things easier. So at most you still have 4 attacks, but because it's turn-based, imagine if you were playing, traditional Pokemon and you could use a growl and follow the growl up with a tackle or something like that in the same turn. That's more or less the idea here. In a lot of cases, it's super helpful. It does consume your hunger, like I was talking about earlier, a little bit more to use those types of moves. But I found that comboing weaker and stat-based moves was really, really fun and made for interesting gameplay aspects. And so I like that a lot. I haven't gotten a chance to explore it too much. I've just used it a bit with the first early move sets that we have. Another big thing with the dungeon exploration that I don't recall being in the originals, but is in this one, is called auto mode. And basically what it does is it allows your character to roam the dungeon until they interact with an enemy, till they come in view of an enemy or enter a room with an enemy. And so it allows you kind of a different way to explore the dungeon instead of just holding down the B button to run and just kind of fast lining through in straight lines to places. It allows you to take a more like slower, methodic kind of pace, and also just like, I don't know, a lot of dungeon crawling is boring and not a lot of fun for a lot of people. So for me, the auto mode is super nice. It's a nice touch to add to the game and to dungeon crawlers in general. You don't see that type of aspect very often. So It also seems to kind of home in on the staircase. So if you're really like, if the thing you like least about this game is exploring the dungeons, which I don't know why you would play this game if that was the case, it's a dungeon crawler, it allows you to kind of skip through those portions a little bit faster and move straight just to battling and moving on to the next floor. So one of the major differences between this game and the previous game is the art style is completely different on Switch. They moved from a more flat, pixel-like style for the original game on Game Boy Advance and for the DS to this new one where they changed it to a sort of watercolor look. And honestly, for the most part, it works really well. It looks really nice. My only major complaint is that it seems like the game was rushed a little bit because the game itself has like some of the sprites and some of the character models don't look great, and so it does feel a little rushed. Some of the animations are a little rough as well, but overall I really like the art style of it and just kind of what they went about doing and making in this one versus the previous two. Overall, I think the assets could be cleaned up a bit. Some of them are rough around the edges, specifically like environment art and stuff like that. Some of the grass doesn't particularly look great. Most of the Pokemon look pretty good. Ekans looks pretty bad, actually. He looks pretty awful, which is weird because he's just like, they've nailed Ekans' snake model so many times, even in the newer 3D models. That's something to take with a grain of salt, but really, like, I know like a lot of people like to complain about visual stuff because it's just something that's like the most obvious, but I really don't think that the visual aspect of this game hinders it, and I think you'll just kind of accept it as like a lower budget charm kind of to it. It's a $60 game. Based on my time with it, I'm re-engaging with it in a way that I was really hoping for because I haven't played it since I was a kid. And so I'm getting my full money's worth out of it, I feel, so far. And it's really hitting on that nostalgia in a way that's effective and nice and not just like, oh, yeah, I liked this as a kid, but it really hasn't translated well. I don't feel that way with this at all. I feel like it's translated very well. And I was kind of hoping we would get more of these games because they didn't particularly always do well, at least in the mainstream. It coming back on Switch really kind of indicates to me that Nintendo is still kind of wanting to explore the weirder side of their franchises. That's really, really exciting to me, and I really think this one's worth your time if you want to pick something up that's different and you still kind of want Pokemon, or you want something that's more cute and lighthearted, something that's a little bit more fun-oriented versus something that's more serious in tone. A lot of what we get these days is very serious and has to be AAA and all that. And this is just a nice, fun, relaxing game, and it finds ways to be interesting outside of the traditional norms that you see in Pokemon. So, of course, I want to hear what you guys have to say if you've played the game, if you've looked into it, if this piques your interest and you've decided you're going to go out and get it. There is a demo available right now on Switch, so you can always actually test out a good portion of this game. Not a crazy amount, but enough to know if this game will be for you or not. And if it is for you and you end up buying it, you can just transfer your demo save right over and pick back up right where you started or you were in the demo. And so that's a nice touch. I hope that's something we kind of see going forward. I really like that kind of stuff depending on the game. This is one of those games where the intro is really long, so it's definitely nice to be added into the game. So anyways, friends, of course we want to hear what you have to say, and we would love if you would engage with us, like, share, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. We also do streams and other podcasts, so you can find us on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, all that kind of stuff. So until next time, friends, I'm Ambassador Michael. Thank you for your time, and definitely check out Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.